But the strong, I mean, I thought you did a really good job with handling of the Genesis one narrative.
Oh, well, thank you, Bismarck. I've been actually hearing that quite a bit. You've said it, Rami said it, Herman said it. Some people were a little bit, actually, they were a little unfamiliar with what I meant by mytho-history.
Yeah.
They kind of thought, kind of like what Bubba said, but I was like, no, this is a literary form. It's talking about like the archetypes here. It's got highly symbolic and figurative language. So I kind of had to like tell them what that means. The mytho is not to be understood with our modern understanding of myth, where we say it's like it's falsehoods or
Fiction.
it's yeah, it's fiction. So and I explained that to Bubba. So, but Rami kind of knew which direction I was going because he knows that my major is in English and that I know these like terminologies. But he already kind of even despite him not knowing the terminology, the way I explained it, he understood where I was going. But yeah, no,
How come I got two
we
pings?
got
What's the
into a
difference?
later discussion on Genesis and like the structure of it versus the structure of what was it, Bubba, the donkey or the ass?
Yeah, yeah, the talking donkey and
Yeah,
Balaam's donkey in Numbers
yeah,
22.
yeah.
That was fine, but just because what I felt like was happening, and because I was in a call with fucking Rami and Straps, so it didn't get nowhere. But
Well, yeah, don't ever debate Rami or Straps. They're not fair debaters.
I think Straps is fair. Rami's not. Rami is Rami likes to ad hom
I've met
and
I met Straps in the PNR server. He is everyone hated him. Everyone that's not his specific branch of Protestantism hated him.
I like Straps and I was a Baptist. I like Straps and I'm not even a believer.
Straps
You're
is
like the
good. The
minority.
Rami just rants and then mod abuses you.
Yeah, he
Is that
does.
Josh?
Yeah, it's Josh. Yeah, Josh is here.
What's up?
When he
Josh
joined, I
was
said, "Oh, and
Yeah, Josh was impressed with me too. Actually, dude, I'm really
Yeah, I think
surprised.
you did good. I think you have really good like public speaking. You're really good at speeches. It's just that I wouldn't tell that you were nervous or anything. To be honest, if you didn't say it, I wouldn't be able to tell.
Oh no,
oh
I
yeah,
was.
I will."
Could you tell
Uh,
Bubba? Did Josh tell you?
Um, I assumed that you were because of the way that you did your opening, and especially after I pressed you on the first point, it's on video. You stuttered so hard that I thought it was the end of the debate. When, yeah, you studied so hard when I pinned you for claiming that the Genesis was mytho history that I thought like I'm about to embarrass Matt. This is gonna be sad. I jumped
Yeah,
in, yeah, but I jumped in not nervous at all. Surprisingly,
yeah.
I
I
maybe just because I've done it a few
I think
times.
and it's real. Okay, it's really silly of me to just assume that when I mentioned mytho history, you guys would just know it. You guys would know what it is that I was talking about. That's what it was. And so when you were asking questions, I was just like, what do you? I was just kind of, I guess, caught off guard. But
Yeah, I prepared. What did I prepare for? What I think. The other point, which to me seemed pretty damning. I mean, there's everyone in here apart from me is a Christian, and there were 8 out of. Hold on, what was it? I think it was like I counted at one point. It was 20 out of the 25 people on the call were Christians. So they're all going to disagree with me.
yeah, that's not.
But the when I brought up Matthew 27:51 to the resurrecting of the saints, I thought that the way that you were articulating yourself and the way that you were behaving was a really kind of strong point in my side. Like, because first I made you agree that Jesus resurrecting is the greatest miracle of all mankind. And I said, okay, roughly one chapter before Jesus resurrects, there is the resurrection of many people, which
No, I
appeared to
thought,
many people.
yeah, but I thought he did a good job
With
with
that
handling.
part,
Yeah, I mean, he gave you his resolution, which was basically, I mean, the whole crux of the
yeah.
story is a narrative about Jesus. So it doesn't really have to be mentioned if it's understood that the resurrection of the many happened, because of the resurrection of Christ. Like it's like if Jesus could resurrect from the dead, of course it's possible for him to res multitudes.
Um,
The lack of historical evidence, like, or corroborating
it's
accounts to it,
it's a
right?
it's a
You're
very
you're you're
strong argument from
presupposing that it
silence,
would be,
however.
it'd be. What's that?
It's a very strong argument from silence, however, because don't
Precisely.
you
If it
think?
doesn't have to be mentioned, if what is implied doesn't have to be
No,
mentioned, then
no, I mean,
that's a more stronger argument than if it has to be
no, I
mentioned.
mean,
It just
you,
simply
you,
by
you don't.
inverting it doesn't strengthen your position or your claim.
It's no, I mean, I believe it does
I mean, it's an
because what we're
unorthodox
talking about
approach for you to take, but it's still
here, Abismo.
pretty
What I
astute.
mean by it's a very strong argument from silence is that, first of all, none of the other gospels mention it. Even John, who depicts Jesus as to be,
So what are you
who
trying to say?
clearly
Are you
depicts.
trying to say that
Are you
it's an
gonna? I
argument from
can't get two words
silence
in, Abismo.
that it's mentioned or that it's not mentioned? Because, I
It's
mean, Bart Ehrman has a better take on this than.
it's that don't you think that Paul, a person who's the kind of like the best missionary after Jesus resurrects, is if he were to convince people that Jesus is God and that by submitting your will to Him you will achieve everlasting life, that he would mention anywhere in his letters or to any person ever that when Jesus died, all the saints rose from the grave and appeared to many people.
I mean, there's so much to mention about the life of Christ. Like, who cares?
Who cares is your position? What the fuck?
Yeah,
What?
that's how obscure, right? That's how obscure, I guess, like, your contention is. Again, like,
Dude,
base theists handled
who
it well. Like, if the crux of the whole drama, right, or the whole claim is that Jesus rose from the dead, if one person could rise from the dead, then un
That's just the
it's
crux
not
of that conversation,
unimaginable
Abismo.
that multitudes would have been raised after
This is
Jesus.
this is this is how I know that you weren't here for this part of the debate.
No, I
The
was.
argument that this part of the debate we were arguing for the historicity of the Bible had nothing to do with Jesus resurrecting. And I was saying the point that we're making now is different than the point that we made in the debate. But for you to claim a position, who cares that all the saints rose from the dead and appeared to many people, is another just straight up outrageous take on your own on your own
It's not
religion.
outrageous at all because when you have the Pentecost, even the Pentecost happen, here's the framing of all the miracles and all this sort of stuff is that at that time they lived in an enchanted world. They believed in magic. The ordinary people that wrote at the time that the Bible was written, they believed that magic was real, including the Romans.
That's fine.
So
Still,
like,
you would think that
yeah,
that's
so
actually stronger for my position because if
it's
Paul's
not.
going, if
No,
Paul's
no,
go,
no, no,
yeah,
no. You
yeah, it
have to.
is. So everyone
Already.
believes,
No, you're already committed to the view that it would have been incredulous not to have mentioned it.
yeah. And don't you think Paul? So
Okay.
everyone believes in
So
magic.
right,
That's fine.
it's an
It's a,
informal fallacy. It's an appeal to incredulity. Just because
okay.
you find it incredulous not to have mentioned it, it doesn't automatically mean that the people back then would have found it incredulous to mention it. Does that make sense?
And then that's just an argument from silence,
It's
which is
not an
another
argument.
informal.
No, that's not an argument for silence at all. An
We
argument
have
from
no way of
no, no, no.
knowing.
An argument from silence would be if it wasn't mentioned in any of the gospel accounts,
It's not.
and that people were making the claim that, oh yeah, if Jesus rose from the dead, of course multitudes also rose from the dead. That would be an argument from silence. The fact that only one of the accounts mentions it canonically speaking and the others don't, that doesn't make it an argument from silence. You need to revisit the logical
Eh,
fallacies.
here, argument from silence.
It's an
Well,
assumption that's made based on where there's no mention of it.
Yeah, it's not mentioned in Paul. Any of Paul's 20 letters. It's not mentioned. Okay. The logic fallacy that uses absence of evidence to support a conclusion.
But it
Sure.
is
Informal
mentioned in the account, in one of the
one.
accounts.
Yeah, it's an argument from silence from
Right.
Mark,
So, but
Luke, and Paul.
here's the thing.
And Mark, Luke,
Right.
John, Paul,
But for you,
Peter.
dude, Bubba, you're making an obscure claim. The reason why most scholars, including Bart Ehrman, don't make the same claim for you is not because you're fucking special. It's because they understand it's a pretty stilted way of interpreting either the account of Matthew or the absence of
Yeah,
those accounts in the other accounts.
In context, the point that I was making to
Because the
Matt
Christians,
is,
it's
oh my
precisely
god,
because the Christians don't emphasize the raising of the multitudes in order to justify the resurrection of Jesus. In fact, it's the other
yes.
way around.
Yes, the in context, the point that I was making to Matt in the debate was not that this would have been strong evidence for Jesus, which you would have known if you were listening. It was that this, quantitatively speaking, in terms of like many witnesses saw it, is probably the greatest miracle that's ever happened in the entire Bible,
Right.
especially if you affirm the idea.
So you're
Dude,
presupposing another
holy
scientific
fuck.
account for Matthew. That's what you're saying.
Where the fuck are we talking about science? This is supernatural shit. There's no
Okay.
science. There's no scientific anything.
No, right. Well, here's the thing. Why are you asking for a criterion to quantify a number of accounts? How many accounts are going to be
I'm
enough for
not.
you
The fuck,
outside of Matthew's account for
dude.
the raising of the
I'm not.
multitudes? How many accounts are going to be?
How did you get from A to B? I'm not asking for a number.
No. You said quantify. That's precisely what is meant. You're asking
Quantitatively
for a
speaking,
specific
yeah.
scientific criterion in order to justify why it wasn't mentioned
No,
in
I'm
the other
not.
account.
You fucking dick.
If the
I'm
crux, that's literally what you said.
Yeah, I said in terms of sheer quantity and quantitative number of witnesses who saw Jesus. What we have historically is Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and Paul, and also Peter, and also James, and also Jude. But what Matthew is claiming is that there are many. It doesn't give a number, it just says many. There's apparently more people that witnessed the resurrection of the saints than wrote down the history of Jesus' resurrection. And so in terms of quantitative number, you could whatever you think the word many means, there are more people that witnessed the resurrecting of the saints than witnessed Jesus. And I'm not asking for a number. I'm not saying that this number would be good enough for me, which is the straw man that you were attacking.
What?
You said that I was like asking for a number in
The
order
reason
to
why no
add
one makes the
credulity.
argument that you're making, Bubba, is because the crux of the narrative, right, or the claim, isn't that those people resurrected. It's rather that Jesus resurrected. So the
Yeah,
thing
we were
is
talking
like
about
it's right. If you wanted to go after the
we're-
historical reliability of the resurrection account, you don't go after
not
the
the
multitudes.
resurrection.
You literally go after the resurrection account itself. Why
No,
did
we're going.
why
I was
why
talking about the
did
res.
why did none of the
Jesus
actual
Christ.
original apostles or writers of the Bible or of the New Testament, why did they not witness the resurrection?
What- The
That's a better
Luke,
argument than
Mark,
pointing to like
yeah, and I
one
did make that
account
argument.
of the multitudes.
First of all, I want to go back 1 second, then I'll address what you just said. Firstly, I'm not attacking the in context. What me and Matt were discussing was the historical reliability of the Bible, not the resurrection. We got into that in the next topic. The other thing was that I did attack the point, like the people that wrote down the resurrection didn't witness it, Mark and Luke, and I applied that to my conspiracy about Paul and Peter, and also. Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
that's
but
all I have
then
to say.
there's no conspiracy there because as long as you're gonna insist on this point, if you just look at First Peter, like it literally tells you, right? Like Jesus went down to proclaim the quote unquote gospel to those in prison. It literally
Peter,
says that.
yeah, it's fine. And Peter was promoting, and I believe that Peter was trying to push his own uh, po- less political, more religious narrative in order to elevate himself, in order to elevate Jesus for his own purposes. Same with Paul.
But then we're just talking about a different point at this point. You're just gish galloping.
Yeah, no. Well, yeah, because I feel like the point that we just talked about is exhausted at this point. And if you knew me, ever since I joined the server, which you would know that I like to talk about a myriad of topics, not just focus and get really pedantic with one.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what gish galloping is.
Okay, then that's just a ad hom, I guess. Is or an informal take on what I'm saying. It's why I like
I mean,
to do.
it's a debate strategy, right? But I mean, again,
I feel like what?
that
No,
there's
here's
going to be a scientific criterion by which you could establish,
yeah, no.
you know,
What I'm
plausibility.
presupposing is
Which
that
you
what
would you
what I'm
would
pre
be you you would
what I'm
be.
presupposing.
Go ahead.
Fuck me. What I'm presupposing is that me and you understand each other on this topic, and we can move to another one.
All right.
Eh. That's why I'm chill with like, all right, we're done talking about the resurrection of the saints, and we could talk about I don't know, or maybe Matt could jump in and we can further defend ourselves with like Paul and Peter, or I put Matt on the back foot for most of the discussion about the Bible, and then he put me on the back foot for most of the discussion about Jesus, which I think is what lost me every single Christian vote in the call, is because I let Matt question me about why I believe that the resurrection was a hoax. And I was yapping about things that are just foreign language to Christians, like how Paul
I'm
was conspiring, Peter
Yeah,
was
that's
conspiring.
really what it comes down to, is if it was a hoax. If you, I mean, that's part of the de fide doctrine. Is if you don't believe in the actual charisma of the disciples, not the apostles, but the people that Jesus first appeared to, then yeah, that's not, you don't have a basis of faith. And that's the thing. It's not really a debate point because that's not what's being asked, right? It's just a claim that's
Yeah, it
being
is.
made.
Did Jesus resurrect? Is the topic.
Okay, okay. I guess if the framing of the debate was that, then that's fine. But outside of the debate, it's a claim being made that Jesus did rise from the dead, and then it's a matter of whether or not we can be certain that those disciples believe that to be the case or not. If it's a broad question of like did Jesus resurrect, then yeah, I mean you're free to ask for um, scientific verifiability.
I don't. You keep on pressing me and saying that I'm looking for some type of scientific explanation to some of the narratives in the Bible. I'm really not. I understand that Jesus' resurrection was supernatural, but you can't really prove scientifically. You can't prove history with science. You can prove archaeology with some science, but not like historical claims. The Matt, what I wish I pressed you on with when we were talking about this would have been because you made the point in your opening that Luke was a very good historian who pointed out plenty of most of the narrative. I think he has the longest gospel, or maybe I think Matthew has the longest gospel. But you pointing out he's a good historian would have worked for my point about the resurrection of the saints. It's just why didn't Luke records the death of like this random guy Stephen, but he doesn't think to record the resurrection of the many saints who appeared to many people.
Hmm.
Yeah. Which I typed down in your when we were doing our openings, but I never looked back at my notes. And the other thing was a bunch of copies of the manuscripts doesn't prove that the content within them actually happened. It just proves that they got copied down a bunch, which is kind of a problem I have with Cliff's take. Is that he uses 5,800 manuscripts that all agree with each other as a point to say that like this actually happened. It just proves that the narrative has been historically kept, not that the narrative actually happened.
No, it establishes the plausibility.
Oh, Abismo, please
No, no,
have
no.
mercy.
Dude, you're never right. But the thing is, you're never gonna have 100% proof, right? So you're equivocating between proof and certainty. Can we have quote unquote faith, like reasonable faith that is more plausible to hold? The fact of the reason why people are gonna quote 500 manuscripts is to try to demonstrate to you that the problem of early Christian canonicity had less to do with the fact of whether or not we had enough sources to try to stitch a story together, but rather that we had so many and too many accounts to try to sift through. That was the problem. You can't mischaracterize, and that's the whole point of bringing out the manuscripts, is literally to demonstrate to you. The problem of canonicity was the fact that we had way too many accounts, and most of them weren't reliable. Were They weren't as reliable as the text that we eventually became part of the canon. You had a lot of pseudographical takes, right? You had a lot of zealous accounts.
Pseudographical. What?
Yeah, people who claim to be writing in the name of the apostles when obvious for obvious reasons, and the church fathers were able to recognize this and tease this out as well. Obviously, they were
No,
like written like
I
much
don't hold that
later than the
position.
time of the apostles, but people
I don't
and
I don't take
groups,
that
Christian
position.
groups, still claim that they were written by apostles.
I
Like
don't
those are
take that
pseudographical
position.
works.
I don't take that position.
No, 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 no,
I
no,
don't
no,
think.
no. Hey, yo, 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 yo. Stop picking out like one thing that I'm saying. Listen
Well,
to the
yeah,
heart. Listen to the heart that
it's
I'm
just
saying,
because.
right? You were like, yo, this one guy cited 5 to 100 manuscripts as if like this is going to be a proof. He's not claiming that it's a proof. Rather, he's trying to demonstrate to you that it's the argument itself is about whether it's plausible enough to hold it to be certain. Certainty is not the same thing as a proof. Certainty has to do with our ability to inductively hold it to be true, right? To have faith in it. An induction is not the same thing as a deduction, right? A proof is deducted, right, from empirical facts, whereas certainty or things that are of like a faith-based nature are inductive premises based on what we have.